Donald Trump says he is open to talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping after imposing an even higher tariff of 125% on China.
Now, the United States has decided to spare some electronic products like smartphones, laptops, and computer chips from the tariffs announced by President Donald Trump.
We begin with breaking news. China has just raised its tariffs against the US from 84% to 125% starting on Saturday. Beijing says it will ignore any further tariff hikes.
There has been a big, breaking, major development in Donald Trump's trade war with just about every nation on earth. Because just a short while ago, his administration has announced they have exempted imported electronics from those reciprocal tariffs.
The trade war between the United States and China has evolved far beyond tariffs and trade imbalances. It has transformed into a complex, multidimensional contest that sits at the heart of a broader global power struggle. Former President Donald Trump's bold declaration, "We have the most powerful weapons in the world," and China's defiant response of "Bring it on" reflect how deeply both nations view this conflict as a matter of national pride and strategic interest. What began as an economic dispute is now a geopolitical and technological showdown. The key question remains, does China possess the strength and determination to withstand Trump's aggressive policies, or will the United States, leveraging the dollar's dominance and its powerful sanctions regime, come out on top? This high-stakes conflict extends far beyond bilateral tensions. From technology transfers in the defense industry to military dynamics in East Asia and global supply chains, the global balance of power is being reshuffled. While President Xi Jinping rallies domestic support with his resolute message, "We will not bow down," Trump continues to raise tariffs, insisting, "We'll do whatever it takes to protect the American worker." The consequences of this confrontation are not limited to the two superpowers. Countries across Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America are feeling the ripple effects. Some are pivoting toward China, seeking new partnerships, while others still view the U.S. as a safer ally. Repairing this growing rift won't be easy, and many analysts believe it may not happen anytime soon. Can China's vast production and export capabilities neutralize America's economic weapons, particularly sanctions? Could the unyielding positions on both sides risk triggering a global recession? And most importantly, how will this strategic rivalry between two giants reshape the world order? One thing is clear, this is no longer just about tariffs. It's a struggle for global leadership. As we watch this high-stakes poker game unfold, the question, how can China beat Donald Trump on tariffs, has gained traction among experts in both countries. In a speech on April 3, 2025, Trump warned, "Let no one underestimate the power of America," claiming he holds unmatched leverage. In response, Chinese state media reported President Xi's firm statement, "We will not bow to any threat," making it clear that Beijing has no intention of retreating. The U.S. trade deficit, China's massive export engine, and the escalating fight over high-tech dominance are now shaking alliances and disrupting global stability. China is betting on its unparalleled production and supply network, its vast domestic market, and its growing web of trading partners to find alternatives to American goods and firms. While Trump often dismisses the notion that China can outmaneuver the U.S., Beijing's promises of sweeping reforms aimed at increasing resilience to external pressures have caught the attention of global observers. Rising nationalist rhetoric in China suggests that for every move Trump makes, China is prepared to respond tenfold, emphasizing that this conflict is not just about economics, but identity and sovereignty. In an interview aired on April 4th, Xi Jinping broke his silence, calling U.S. tariffs arbitrary and unfair, and added, "If the goal of this trade war is to weaken China, I am confident it will not succeed." Diplomats around the world have interpreted these remarks as a sign that both sides are digging in for the long haul. This isn't just a dispute, it's a battle for dominance. As the U.S. pushes for tighter restrictions on Chinese tech firms and limits American business activity in China, Beijing counters by highlighting its role as the world's factory. With alternative markets and technological advances, Chinese officials maintain that they won't bow to U.S. pressure. This is more than just economic warfare. This is a showdown for supremacy. And as both powers raise the stakes at the global poker table, American media headlines say it all: Donald Trump's war with China is much bigger than trade. The Trump administration frequently reminds the world that this conflict with China goes far beyond trade. It also encompasses nuclear technology, the space race, and shifting geopolitical balances. Tariffs, in their view, are a strategic tool aimed at curbing China's growing military and economic influence. Beijing, however, isn't backing down. With defiant rhetoric like blackmail will get them nowhere, China directly challenges Washington's aggressive stance. It's no exaggeration to call this the most significant power struggle of the 21st century. On a societal level, the effects are already being felt. In the U.S., working-class Americans are concerned about rising prices for imported goods and the increasing cost of domestic raw materials. In China, manufacturing firms fear losing key export markets. Yet, Beijing has a major advantage: vast public funds and state-supported institutions that offer flexibility in responding to losses. Meanwhile, Trump's message to his supporters is clear: we've endured trade injustice for too long. Now it's time for payback. China, anticipating such moves, has quickly begun diversifying its trade relationships. New agreements with Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe are seen as part of a strategic Plan B. The U.S., however, insists that China remains heavily dependent on access to the American market. Chinese media counters with a very different narrative. The world is no longer one-dimensional. The U.S. no longer holds the decisive power it once had. This divergence in worldviews is pushing both sides into increasingly hardline positions, and most experts agree a broad compromise isn't likely anytime soon. Some Chinese policymakers argue for a slow-burn strategy. Rather than launching massive retaliations, China should frustrate the U.S. with unexpected tariffs or diplomatic countermoves. Our power is not loud. It is steady and deep, they say. In the U.S., Trump continues to assert his dominance with bold claims. When he talks about having the most powerful weapons in the world, he's not just referring to military strength, but also the might of economic sanctions and the dollar's global reserve status. China, for its part, leans on its vast foreign exchange reserves, access to raw materials, and expansive trade network across Asia as its own strategic assets. Trump has recently intensified his rhetoric, declaring it a rally. They're robbing the whole world, but the American worker will win again. Justice will be served. Chinese state media dismissed these remarks as political theater, urging audiences to look at the economic realities first. Some Chinese analysts argue that Trump's strategy is less about economics and more about short-term political gain. That said, not all American voices oppose the administration. Some economists believe Trump's hardline approach is necessary to reinvigorate U.S. manufacturing and industry. On the Chinese side, Xi Jinping has been pushing reforms to boost domestic consumption since early 2025, declaring, "If we strengthen our own internal market, American pressure will not break us." China's regional focus is becoming more pronounced, with growing trade ties in Japan, South Korea, ASEAN countries, and Africa. In response, the U.S. is forging new trade agreements around the world aimed at weakening China's influence. This global contest is drawing sharper lines, increasingly dividing the international system between two superpowers. The rivalry between Trump and Xi isn't just the subject of political commentary. It has become a global conversation. On social media, Chinese youth express their willingness to pay the price to protect national honor, while some Americans voice frustration, blaming China for taking our rights. This rising wave of nationalism on both sides is further narrowing the already shrinking space for compromise. As the trade war escalates, diplomatic bridges are fraying. Experts warn that without renewed dialogue, the risk of a broader crisis looms large. In the U.S. Senate, Trump's strategy is polarizing. Some see it as reckless, while others support the effort to contain China's rise. In China, by contrast, the leadership stands firmly united behind Xi, leaving little room for internal dissent. As each side continues to maneuver for advantage at the trade table, the competition is increasingly spilling over into military and political domains. The world watches as the stakes rise, and the rivalry deepens. For example, American patrols in the South China Sea and China's expansionist moves highlight the military dimension of this rivalry. As part of its grand modernization plan, China aims to become a global leader in technology production. Beijing encourages American entrepreneurs and major companies like Elon Musk to invest in its territory, all while supporting domestic companies with subsidies and opening them up to international markets. In response, the Trump administration is resisting what it views as China's exploitative technological policies with patent lawsuits and tariffs. According to an analysis in Newsweek, China can be likened to a boxer in a ring who keeps its fists hidden, waiting for its opponent to make a mistake before launching a precise counterattack. This analogy suggests that Beijing has perfected the art of gradual, calculated retaliation. While Trump wields tough economic sanctions, what he calls his nuclear option, China also possesses its own powerful tools, including vast dollar reserves and significant holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds. Many economists argue that if China were to sell these bonds in bulk, it could destabilize the U.S. economy, though Beijing would hesitate to take such a drastic step as it risks incurring major financial losses. The real question at hand is, who can outlast the other? As both sides test each other's political resolve, global financial markets are growing increasingly nervous. Headlines like "China says it will not back down" and "Trump challenges China to a showdown" are becoming common. The language from the Xi Jinping administration consistently emphasizes, "We will not give up our historical rights or economic independence." Meanwhile, Trump appears to be testing whether he can outlast China in this contest of determination, with the world watching. While America's military spending and economic power are vast, China's population size and production capacity offer a level of leverage that should not be underestimated. As a result, the signs of a potential global crisis are becoming more apparent,